Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you're listening, hopefully watching, the Practitioner Corner podcast. Today we have Greg on. Ryan, how you doing? How's your day?
I am fantastic. I'm super excited for today's call.
Okay, here we go. Greg, would you do us a favor, the audience a favor, and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Greg Muccio. I am the head of talent acquisition at Southwest Airlines. I just celebrated my 23rd anniversary with them on Tuesday, so I know, right?
Is that even normal?
No, I told my boss, I took the under on myself, and so I lost some money there, but it's, it was still the smart bet at that time.
You need to get you a Rolex.
Fair.
Please.
Right. Wow, you know who was at Southwest? You probably didn't crisscross. Libby Sartain.
Yeah.
She was CHRO 100 years ago.
Literally, I started probably within 3 months or so after she left. Like her role was still open at the time that I started. So yeah,
she's absolutely lovely. Lives down in Central Texas, and she's on the board of Manpower. So I just recently got to reconnect with her, and because she was in a board meeting that I was presenting in, and she's just like, she's Texan, so she's like one of my ancestors fought for the Republic of Texas. So I've got that stuff going on, and so does she. She actually, her ancestor that fought for the Republic, they gave him like 600 acres. Her and her husband went and bought the 600 acres.
Oh, wow.
Down in like Pflugerville. Like that wasn't cheap.
Okay. Right, for sure.
So, and so, wonderful person and wonderful HR strategist. Just that's cool. So 23 years.
Yeah, I think it's very, with her, from everything that I've known, read, or been able to see, very genuine, and I don't think it's changed.
No.
Through her journey or whatever, which is that's nice to see with anybody, right? Where there's this core thing that you can sort of count on, I guess.
Yeah, it's predictable. She's that person, whether or not she's at Yahoo or at Southwest or wherever she is.
Right.
Same person. So what's your current, what do you do at Southwest again? What's the title?
Yeah, so I'm the managing director of talent acquisition, or I'm the lead head of talent acquisition. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I've been in TA the whole entire time. I started out as a recruiter and just kind of worked my way up. And at this point in time, I've been really blessed with some really good leaders, and the last two have really gave me a lot of freedom to sort of kind of create an organization. And so I have approximately maybe 250 people in my TA org, and really have built it so that it's the way I like to describe it is we're a full service staffing company with one client. And that client at the end of the year determines whether or not to renew our contract. And that's really how I like us to approach the work, so that it's not about handling a rec, it's about a service that you provide, right? If that makes sense. And then we also do something, what I call full service staffing, or full total talent staffing, if you will, which is we do a lot of silver and bronze medals, if you will, right? And so just more of an approach where we're trying to, I may talk to you, William, and go, man, he's a great Southwest fit, and maybe we had, you put in for a role and we chose Ryan, but we're like, wow, and so now part of what we do, and even some part of our tech stack helps support us to go, hey, William, here's 3 other roles that you're actually a match with, and be able to do that. So just excited to be able to build, that I've gotten to build a program. And like I said, we have a career mobility team, we have a campus team. We're literally in elementary schools talking about aviation. I have a huge recruitment marketing candidate experience team. So just really excited about all that.
A couple of things there, Greg. Well, one, I want to understand how, because it's very rare that we talk. I think we maybe talked out of the 100 and some episodes we've done already. one person that's been with the company for 20 years.
Yeah.
You didn't come in as a recruiter there and say, I'm going to be here for 20 years.
Right.
What kept you there? Let's start there, and then we'll get into some of the fun stuff.
First job was a recruiter. You're just straight up
senior recruiter.
Senior recruiter. What was the roles that you were recruiting for?
My own department, so HR, and then that was where I started, and then got to support the finance department, internal audit, and then what we called at the time, they were called network planning. They're much bigger now or whatever, but so a lot of those businesses really, really good. And then I'll answer your question, Ryan, but one of the things that I don't know why I like to share this with people, but I do think it's, before I got my first leadership role at Southwest, I interviewed 7 times and didn't get whatever within the same organization. And so sometimes when I have that person that gets upset about I'm like, you got 6 more rejects before you could. Yeah, let me know when you at least get to 4, and we can start commiserating. But yeah, you didn't get your first one in a year and a half of being here. It's like, let's talk a little bit. But yeah, Ryan, I was laughing this week when we were talking about being here 23 years, and I said, I'm like, the next closest competitor, or 19 and a half years or whatever is the next thing. And to your point, it's not there. And, I think where I work, it's certainly about the people. I think the culture at Southwest, what I always tell people is, the things that you read about it, can't do it justice until you're here. They just really can't. I mean, it's like, that's really good. I got 10 other stories that are better than that, right? And what those pieces are. And so, I've had opportunity and I've answered that question before, Ryan, where I said, hey, it's just literally when you go to bed, on a Sunday night and you're not dreading going to work on Monday, or going to bed any night and not dreading, or not that it's easy or any of that kind of stuff, but you're not dreading it, and you begin just thinking of the people that you do the work with or whatever. And so that's just always been my piece, is like, okay, and I love it and I get to do these things. So that's what someone has to come offer me, right? Like, it can't just be a better title or more money. It's got to be, am I gonna feel that same way about another job, right? And so that's one of the really big reasons.
It seems like Herb created it that way. It's a people first business. Yes, it's transportation, and yes, it's aviation, etc. But people are at the heart, or at the center of what Southwest is. It seems, as an outsider at least, it seems like it's always been that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think what's fun as well is, through our history, so many of the really innovative and creative and money-making things that we've come up with come from an individual person. They are not necessarily some, executive top-down or whatever that said, this is what we're going to do. So many of our historic ideas were generated from frontline or that kind of thing, or in a much more collaborative way. And I think that's a really huge piece. And of course, obviously in my role, and whether I'm talking to candidates or talking to folks like you or my own team, and just kind of go, hey, those are just things you gotta measure up when you're looking at it. And sometimes people don't do that. I think there's fascinating. We have a really large, probably of our well over 4,000, probably even higher than that, of employees that we call boomerangs, right, that left and came back. And I think that always says a lot, just because they've had this, they go someplace else, and they're just like, okay, wait a minute, I missed that, and I'm willing to kind of go back. So, yeah.
I think if you asked Ryan if he would go back to Connexa, the old Connexa pre-IBM,
100%.
If he would go back and work with Rudy and all that stuff, he'd go back. He'd leave.
I'd say bye, William.
He'd go back.
There's an opening.
Greg.
There's a host opening.
Greg, I don't know if you can see behind me. I've got this red photo here. And I've got a green one there. Now, eventually, they'll get up on the wall.
Yeah.
Those are from 2008. 2007.
They're Connexa posters.
They're Connexa.
Wow.
They were the EV, the core values of Connexa.
Yeah.
They were the Tenexas, and I was like, I really like them, and they sent them to me, and that was it. And I've had them ever since. They've been on the wall. They've just been down for a while. But
you go back. It's again, you might get tempted with the grass is greener. You get to the boomerangs. You get tempted. There's more money, a title, whatever, more travel, whatever the bid is, and all of a sudden you go do that, and you're like, the money's not worth it.
Yeah. I always say it's like, the grass is greener, still has to get mowed. It's going to get mowed by you. So there's that piece, and Ryan, I think that you talking about those values, I think that's really important, because I think one of the things that we always, what we will tell people a lot of times in the interview is to be your authentic self, right? That's who we want to see coming into work every day. Now, sure, we have some values as well, and they're not negotiable, but we're looking for that in who we're hiring, and also just hoping that people identify with that, and then you can also show up in that way, right? And so, people is, I'll have somebody that's like, I flew on y'all, the other day, and it was really great, but the flight attendant wasn't as funny as they normally are. I'm like, well, they don't have to be funny, right? Like, they have to keep you safe, number one. That's their main job. Second is in the hospitality.
This isn't a Disney flight.
Jokes are optional, and the ones that do that, they're not told to do that. That's their, that's their own thing and how they do it. And I'm sure some get more comfortable or confident over time, but it's piece of that's right. Like, you get to do that, but you could maybe never tell a joke over the microphone, if you will, and still be, one of the greatest flight attendants that we'd ever have, because of how you're individually taking care of our customers and obviously keeping them safe. And that's that way for all of our roles, I think, right? Is like, hey, okay, that Southwest fit, if you will, or whatever that is. It's about those values, but people can show them in different ways.
I wish y'all had more flights out of Philly. Like, I mean, there's nothing. I can't do anything. And there used to be a ton. Like, that used to be the airline. Now I'm on American, but because we don't have the options. But I've always loved the branding, the commercials, the colors, everything. It's always been very iconic for me.
Yeah, well, it's again, I think it comes from the heart. I think it's not contrived. Like, Old Navy did this bit years ago, where they did all their it was the Gap. They did all their advertising internal.
Yeah,
and so they didn't do it with an agency, and so they used real associates, and it was just like it was them.
Yeah, and on our commercials, anytime you see somebody in a uniform, that's a Southwest employee. There's never an actor involved in that particular piece, which is really kind of cool and fun. And then it's fun when you see him out or whatever it may be as well, and do that piece. But it's really cool.
I'd be asking for autographs just for fun,
for sure.
To see how they handle it.
They're a little celebrity. Yeah,
saw you on the safety video on flight. Can I get your autograph?
Can you get it here?
All right, so let's go.
It's got to be good, right? It's going to be a good flight, right?
100%.
This person knows what they're doing. 100%. Knows what they're doing. Yeah.
They're on a safety video.
I was reading a script. Relax, okay? Like, if the plane goes down, I'm out first. I'm just letting you know now.
No. So let's go back to high school, college. What did you want to be? What was the ish dream?
Yeah, probably like so many others, right? You kind of build that, who's in your life and around you. And so my dad and my brothers were all in sales. And so that's what I knew the most of, right? What was that particular piece? I had a brief fantasy around, let's be honest. I wanted to be Magnum PI because that was just so it's like, okay, you can't watch that show.
The truth comes out.
Come sell it. Come on now. Come on now.
And so there was this brief, like, I'm going to go into the Navy and be in a Navy intelligence. And then, I had a family member in the service. It's like, let me explain something to you. I was like, okay, that's a good call out. Then, a brief moment of, I think I'd be a really good lawyer, and then learn like how much reading was involved. And I was like, probably not a good call as well. And so
that's what turned me off to it too.
Yeah.
Is I talked to a pre-law student, and they were like, "Oh yeah, when you get to law school, you're literally going to be reading about 1,000 pages a night." I'm like, "Say again."
I heard that same thing, and I'm like, that's more than I've done up to this point in time in my first 18 years. And so, I think, I'm going to
need that summarized.
I feel like we're coming from the same cloth here.
Right? Yeah.
I literally asked the counselor in college, I was like, hey, I'm like, which major has the least amount of science in it? And they're like, if you go business, you only have to take 6 hours, and you can take astronomy. And I'm like, let's go with that one, right? And but yeah, I was, I did go. It was, marketing, and you did those kind of tests that you would do in high school, and that's kind of where it shot out. And I'll be honest, my first I think either 3 or 4 roles out of college was in sales, and I was actually at a staffing agency in sales. And finally just had that moment where I was like, man, not only do I really hate this, I'm really bad at it too. And I'm like, that's not a good combination for career longevity. And I mean, and the thing was that was at my at least 3rd different type of sales, or 4th even. And so I was like, yeah, it's not the product, it's not that.
And then how many years?
Maybe from graduating college, I was probably maybe 29-ish, 30 at that, I would say. Yeah.
Ryan quit a staffing firm, his staffing job, after his honeymoon. He gets married, goes on his honeymoon, comes back, goes, enough of this.
Right.
Well, no, it wasn't that simple, Greg. I came in and my manager said something to me, and I lost interest. And I said, I'm out of here. And I left. There was an interaction before I said I wasn't interested. I came back to the office.
So those interactions.
Right, yeah. So one of the things that they did is they were like, hey, the one thing that we see from you, what you do sell and seem to be able to explain really well, is perm placement. And we don't actually have anybody in the office that knows how to recruit for that or do that. Would you be interested in, if we created that as a role and, you had to fund your own stuff, but you could do this? And I was like, sure. And
so you did both sides of the desk.
Yeah, I did both sides of the desk for a long time. Finished up my time at the agency just to kind of grow. Was an on-site person at one of our larger clients here in the area, and that was some really great experience just being able to do that. But what drove me ultimately to then Southwest. I was okay, but it was right during the .com bust. And William, I know you're from this area, but there's a whole corridor of companies, and we had probably 80% of our temps were in that, and overnight, or within gone. And so I'm watching people kind of get laid off for not their own doing, and I just was like, and you've been in that environment, even if you're safe, being left behind is not sometimes the greatest thing either. And had a good friend from church in a Bible study that we were just talking, and she was like, hey, I know one of the recruiters there, and I think they have an opening, and passed the resume along, and 23 years ago, and here I am. So yeah.
So for the audience, real quick, Greg and I both grew up in Arlington, Texas. He went to a rival high school, dare I say a better high school at the time, in the 80s. And one of my fights in high school, many fights, but one of my fights in high school was in the Lamar school parking lot, on a Friday night. For whatever reason, me and my friends were hanging out with a bunch of girls from Lamar, and the football team came back from a loss. And I had Colt stickers, Arlington. I had my high school stickers on my car. And all of a sudden, it's like, here's all these people that are very angry.
Right.
Very angry. And we're talking to the girls from the school, wrong place, wrong time.
Bad timing right there.
Bad timing.
Really
bad timing. Now,
So,
you know what I've thought since then? If they would have won, like they were supposed to, if they would have won, probably wouldn't have would have happened.
Yeah. Well, that's, before we started recording, and we were we were educating Ryan on just, Friday Night Lights, and if you're not, the movie is real. Like, we actually, it was 2 years, maybe 3 after I graduated, that team that's portrayed, Lamar played them in the playoffs or whatever, because
they played
Odessa
Carter?
Permian, and that was one of their things is their school. That school is
Muccio.
K through 12, so the kids,
right.
When I went to that playoff game, I kid you not, and this, think against this
Texas
high school.
Stadium.
Yeah, they had no penalties, and from an eye view, made no mistakes, no blocking mistakes, no assignment mistakes.
It was
or
a
whatever.
pro team. It was at least a good college team.
And I think maybe that team might have had 1 or 2 kids that went to D1 ball, but it was because they just played so much like a unit, and you truly had to beat them to beat them. So yeah.
So when I was with Walmart in the '90s, late '80s and '90s, I lived out in Odessa and Midland. So I lived in Midland, opened a store there, and then went to Odessa and opened a store there. And that stuff is real. Like we'd all go like the Walmart. You could just like sales on a Friday night. Yeah, there's nothing there. Nobody. You could almost shut down the store at about 6 because everyone was going to the game. Or everyone's going to go somewhere to
eat. That was a bus full of kids, right? That they were angry and upset on their own, but what they were thinking about is the next day of practice and how, because you always came in on Saturday, and when you won, you had donuts and watched film and maybe did a small little jog. You lost, you were in the bleachers until you couldn't walk anymore. But then also it was facing your parents who had, 100%. In this case, traveled or whatever.
Shame.
And so, you were wrong place, wrong time for some folks to get some frustration out. So,
Yep. Didn't end well for me. So where did you go to school?
So I went to UT Arlington.
UT.
So stayed local, and funny story on the connection, and I, for where I am now as a leader of this, and I didn't spot it at the time, so luckily you can see that I've learned and grown. But when I was in college, I was also in a fraternity and participated in a lot in Rush, and I when I was there, I really rebranded our Rush. I was, when I was selected to do it, I thought ours was really boring, and we just did a lot of things to the point where even afterwards, even after I graduated, I would get asked to come back and teach Rush to everybody else and how to do this. And I always tell everybody about, when you're looking for work, don't get hung up on the titles because they don't make sense. And I said, when I graduated college, had companies listed jobs instead of recruiter as Rush chairman, I would have known exactly what I would have done, and I would have been in this a recruiter since I was 23 years old, right? Because I knew that that's what it was and what it was, and it wasn't really till towards the end of my time at the staffing company when I was talking to somebody else about it, and they were like, "Of course you were good at it. It's the same thing as recruiting, and you're good at that." And it was just like the light bulb just started like, oh yeah, I saw that too. I just was testing you if you, and so that's just and I like to tell that. I like to tell the people that are listening, because most likely there are a lot of things like that are who you are and are being developed at a much younger age than what we maybe give credit for. It just looks different. It's called something different or whatever, but there is so much of that, and one of the reasons why I'm real passionate about one of the things that we do at Southwest, where we are now in, I have a campus team, and we do a really great internship program, but we also now have a high school internship program. We do a summer camp for high school age employees' kids to teach them about the ways of work at Southwest. So they've grown up being excited about Southwest, whatever their mom, dad, or but that may not be what they want to be, right? And so show them all these different opportunities. But we go into junior highs as well, and when we do aviation days for 3rd through 8th grade, and then we're in elementary schools. And a big piece of that, and one of my huge beliefs is we don't have as big of a skills gap in this country as we do an awareness gap. That's where the real problem is at that age. Is you look at it, if you go talk, or 3 or 4 years ago, if you would go talk to an elementary school kid, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? Fireman, policeman, teacher, maybe doctor, those types of things, because that's either what they know and maybe, what their parent does or whatever. And so I think it was just really, really important to be able to do that. And then, we certainly know as you begin to do things with either, in diversity or female, the younger they get planted a seed for something that is STEM, the better, right? So the earlier you can get into that. And so that's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about it, and is just to create that awareness and then help them begin to show them the way that they can get there, right? And what that is. And part of it for me is truly that my own personal journey, that it's like, man, if somebody would have been able to sit down and go, man, you really like doing this and you excel at it, and here's the job or jobs that connects to.
Greg, you're dangerously close to converting me to believing that you care. Let me just tell you.
No.
So,
Wow. Okay.
Let me back up. Let me tell you the story behind it.
Hold on.
Okay.
He's from Philadelphia. Just remember, Greg.
Okay,
he's from Philadelphia.
I feel like I'm on the goal line and I just need one more play. Yeah.
Don't make me hit the play button here, people. I will do it. So I generally have a problem believing when organizations do good things.
Yeah.
When they go into the community and do things. I always feel, okay, there's a business reason they're doing it. Now, from my own experience, it's been that way. With the exception of, I was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. They completely are involved in the community. Love it. Connexa, same way. Everything else, not so much over my career. I get the feeling, I feel genuinely that you are in the Connexa and the Enterprise kind of realm of companies that want to do something. Yeah, they really, truly want to do something. And the story around the awareness versus the skills gap is really fascinating to me, because my oldest is 16, and she's in that area now, saying,
right,
well, what do I want to do? I'm starting to look at colleges. I don't know what I want. I want to be in criminal investigations, or I want to be a lawyer. I want to be this, and she's picking those big titles,
right?
Because that's what we know about, and she doesn't feel. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I feel like she feels, or others feel, they don't have the skills to do all the other things, or they're not glamorous enough to do that. So curious to get your thoughts there. How does you're starting to explain how Southwest covers that? How do corporate organizations, what's the responsibility there to help with that?
Well, it's funny you say that, because twice this summer I talked to kind of a high school group organization with lots of teachers and people that help, and then I went to a little small conference that was a bunch 50, 60 associate deans and kind of the business schools of a lot of colleges, and I opened both of them up with the same thing of like, there's a lot of philanthropic of what you're hearing from me in this and what we want to do, but don't mistake the selfishness of, I got to staff 10,000 people a year, and they got to come from someplace, and I'm a consumer. So like, don't mistake that it's just that. It's like, and at times I'm telling you, we need to do better. And so if I can help you, if I can help be a carrot for you for one, right? So that at whatever age the kid begins to understand, oh wait a minute, I can really be a pilot. Okay, great. Well, what do I need to be good at, right? And then they begin to understand that, and so now there's math becomes not just math. Math becomes the means to an end that they are very interested in. It's very intent. I remember the very first summer camp we did, and one of the sessions we had was the scheduling group. And so this is really the folks that know where all the planes are and have to move them around. And then as you can imagine, there's weather or whatever. And so you have to start thinking through all those things, because there may be bad weather in Philly, right? And so we avoid, but there were people in Philly that were going to get on us and go one place. And so how do you work all that? And they would do sessions, and they were given a plane, if you will, and said, okay, you got to get it from here to here, but here's your limitations. The plane can't fly this many hours. You've got a crew and all that. And I remember talking to the kids as they'd come out, and it's like, what was that like? And this one girl just looked at me and she goes, that was math. And I was like, okay. And she goes, but it's the coolest math I've ever done. And I was like, okay, that's the hook, right? Is where that kind of comes from. So I do think it's really important. And I do think that there's a really mass opportunity for, we're all in this together, in my opinion. And so there's really a huge opportunity for corporations to be working with schools and other agencies and help with that, right? Help create that pathway. I think the other thing, Ryan, is in the last decade, if you will, the one thing that I think that we've done, we made a mistake, and I think we're seeing it now, is this sort of just college for everyone. There's no other way through life through college or whatever. And so you have literally a generation of folks of students that don't understand that, aren't meant or made or can't get through college, don't like it, and then they don't have anything else. And what I like to tell them,
they get out with debt, which is even worse. They get out with debt and no direction.
I was talking to this whole school or this conference, and it was teachers, high school teachers across the country, and I said, and a lot of them had some lower income schools that they were representing, and I said, here's the deal, we can take 10 of your students. Said, you give me one of them, and that one student has to come work for me at Southwest when they graduate high school, working on the ramp, which is below the wing. And I said, the one minimum requirement is they have to stay with us for 5 years. I said, that person will out-earn, and I said, your other 9 get to go to college. I said, my person will out-earn 7 of those 9. And it was just like that. Because I was like, well, here's the thing. They're going to get raised. Here's the healthcare. Here's the 401k. Here's all these things. Oh, yeah. I told you they had to stay with us for 5 years. I didn't say they had to stay doing that job. I have 7 or 8 VPs that started off throwing bags at the company, right? And so to your point, that debt and all those things, or I'll talk to engineers, and it's like, we need engineers, and that's great. But we also need mechanics. And guess what? At 19, you can graduate with an A&P license and start doing that. And I go, I've got, within 5 years, I think it's actually 4, you're making 6 figures as an A&P mechanic for an airline. And then as it grows, every mechanic for us will retire as a multi-millionaire, right? They just will. And so then you get into, well, what kind of life do you want to live, right? Do you want to, because guess what? As they move along that pathway, not only are they making really, really good money and being well taken care of, but now they have a schedule that if coaching their kids' soccer team or whatever it is really, really important to them, they've built it around that as well. And I think that's just one of the things that we miss in that process is to understand the kid, or in your case, understand your daughter, to go, okay, how is she wired, and what's important to her, and think through all of those things in the choice of what it is that she might want to be.
All right, I gotta ask about the agency within Southwest, because when you first, I was going to just load up then, but I'm like, I'll let it breathe. But we're getting towards the end of the show. I have to know how this works.
Yeah.
Because I think this is the first time I've heard someone say they run it like that. And first of all, I think it's the right way to do it. I think we could stop there. But I think there's probably some change management that had to go along with that to get people to stop thinking about kind of the historical way of corporate recruiting.
Right.
And think of it as a full service agency. So tell us, just take us into that world.
Yeah. No. Well, it started out in one of my mid roles where we were actually running the contingent program within Southwest, right? So I had this little team, and we created it internally, and then at that time when we did this was well over 10 years ago. That was rare. Like, that didn't happen. It was always being vendored out by somebody that would, a managed service provider that would do it. And so when we started that, I just kind of told the team at the time, I'm like, here's who we're competing against. And I go, so we have to act the same way. And part of that is we are blessed because we are internal, which means we have better information and we're getting this. But we can't act entitled that we're owed the rec to work on, or that we're owed this stuff. We've got to earn this business. And so at that time I said, just like any other MSP that comes up for contract renewal, that's going to be our approach. But it was also to the agencies. I was like, I want to be, because I come from that background, I want to be whoever the recruiter is for the agencies that we're choosing business. I want their best recruiter to want to be on the Southwest account, because they get feedback in 24 hours. They get all these clear things, and that we're actually in place of them. And where it kind of started, William, was, those groups get paid based on how much money's running through their program, right? And how much all the billing. And one of the times to a couple of the VPs are like, well, Greg, why are you doing it? How is it different or whatever? And I go, hey, I get paid the same on the 5th and the 20th, whether there's $1 or $100 million going through our program. For me, it's what's in the best interest of Southwest. And that might actually be me telling you that we need to increase our bill rates because this is a really hard group and we want to make sure we're getting the best. But I'm not doing it because it's going to make my commissions go up. I get nothing from that, right? And so that's where it started. And then as I kept, saying yes to opportunities and growing, I just kept doing it. And part of it is, just even in talking to peers, I do think corporate recruiting at times can get very, there can become an entitlement, right? Because I don't have to go work for the rec. And so, right. And I just said, man, when you have to place people in order to eat, pay your rent, those things, you have a different hustle factor. And so literally half of my team that I have now in the recruiter space spent a little bit of time in agency. Now, my perfect is an agency corporate blend, but if I had to choose one or the other, I would choose agency because there's just this inherent hustle, this inherent, well, guess what? You lulled the customer to sleep because we took so long, versus, hey, you've got this. How fast are we presenting candidates, right? How are we doing that? How are we creating that sense of urgency? But what's cool then too is as a full service, I could sit down if you're the hiring leader and go, William, I hear you. You need to get work done. We can go. Here's the different ways that we can go, right? Here's data that I have on the market. So let's talk about if it's going to be full-time the level. But I could also put a contingent person there, either for this or maybe attempt to hire, or you've got a longer play. What if we started getting you interns that we could ultimately convert? And so just being able to do all of those things, but also know, oh, wow, right now we've got a really hard to fill role that's normally done as an individual basis, but the group is growing so much that I said, we're going to take a volume hiring approach to it because we will never get you staffed if we keep trying to do it one at a time. And everybody's like, well, you can't do that with and I'm like, yeah, you can. It's just how you do it. It's just there's more at the top of the funnel and you just have a different approach and everyone's got to be in. Well, in a 3-week span, we've staffed more for them than what we did in the previous 7 months type of deal. And everyone's excited, everyone's working hard, and we're tweaking it. But it's that kind of thing, right? And the biggest play for me, William, was just on my own team's mentality, that it's just like, it's not about just filling a rec, right? I tell any new hire that comes on my team, here's what success will look like in the recruiter space. Is I'm like, I'm not interested in how many recs you filled or that kind of thing. I'm going to want to know how many relationships you built, because that's what will be the key to your success on our team, on your peers, in your customer group or whatever. If you do that, not only the grace that you'll get, because we will make mistakes and stuff will happen, but the insight that you'll get, because they'll want you to be successful, right? And to begin thinking that way. And so I really love it. And so then what it's allowed us to do is like, oh, well, now I need career mobility, because how do we help our internals? And I have this recruitment marketing candidate experience, because everybody can lose candidates through the process, or how do you attract? And so, I can, back to going to an elementary school. I can go to an elementary school in the Metroplex area, and they say, hey, Greg Muccio from Southwest Airlines is going to be here. I promise you, every single kid will think I'm either a pilot or a flight attendant. They will not think that there's all these other roles. And then, to be really honest with you, if it is a economically disadvantaged, they may not even, because they've never flown before, they may not even understand who we are. And I mean, I've done this. There's the closest elementary school to Love Field Airport, which is where our headquarters is in our Dallas airport, and the planes fly over them all day. I've been to a 3rd grade class in there, and they literally did not know who we were. And it's like, that really loud sound when you're outside at recess and that thing, that's what we do. Oh, wow, that's cool. And so just all of those things are so important. So that's what I say, like, we're really a full service. And what we say is we know that, or our vision, if you will, is that it is a business imperative that Southwest Airlines is staffed both now and in the future. And so that's what our job is to do, is to be making sure that happens. Sold? Did I score, Ryan? Did I punch it in?
God.
Did I punch it in?
I'm a believer, Greg. I'm a believer.
Nice.
I'm a believer in Southwest and you. I'm not going to go as far as saying Dak. It's great.
Yeah. I understand.
Fair.
I'll take it. We got small victories. Yeah.
We got 2 times to prove that to you this year. So we'll see.
And we could have a second episode.
Oh my God.
Everything you just spoke about, and maybe there's a ton to talk about there.
Greg, you're doing great work, and thank you for coming on the show, educating our audience, because I love the approach. I just think it's a great way to keep the hustle in there, because it's natural to get stale. And everybody's got luxury vehicles, mortgages, and all this other stuff, and so you can kind of become impacted by that.
Well, and I tell my team, I believe this for myself personally, but for the team, and you always try and get better, and I'm a big believer. I always kind of, I try to use sports analogies when I can. I'm not saying that I hire based on that on my own team, but it does help a little bit that I don't have to think of something different to give them or whatever. But I always talk about, in baseball, it's like, you know what? You can score a run by hitting a home run. You can also do it by hitting 4 singles in a row. And I think sometimes we really lose sight of everyone's just trying to make a big move. And would love to come back and talk to you, because we are under that vein. We are sort of reinventing ourselves a little bit with what the market is, and we're doing a big thing. What I call is we're moving really heavy left of the rec, and we're also approaching. We really kind of flip the script on the approach of our work. So today it's really recruiter centric, if you will, right? And they're still really important. But it's like, wow, I've got all these really great tools now. We need to think about, well, when the work comes, how can I absorb it? And I want to be able to make sure that we can scale up to the work without just constantly adding headcount or putting us in that jeopardy. And I always tell people, I'm like, most companies, including ourselves, for the most part, you start your work when you get your rec. And I'm like, no. We're going to get to the point where the rec is the beginning of the end. The rec is the activity that has to happen to get the person on board that we've been talking to for however long. Right.
They get you to speed.
Right. Speed and quality. It's like those, joke that, right. There's no, y'all know this from the space. I'll joke. I'm like, I'm been doing this between the agency and Southwest, almost 27 years. I'm like, still waiting for a hiring leader to either tell me to slow down, right, that I'm moving too fast, or
too many candidates.
Yeah, you're sending us too many good people. Could you lower the bar on what you're sending? Like, when that happens, that may be my time to say it's over.
I'm retiring.
Armageddon is on its way, and I'm out of here. But until then, how do we keep trying to make that better?
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, spending time with us, and spending time with our audience, Greg. We really
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.